are very stringent standards which the Reserve Bank has raised. In fact, experts like Deepak Parekh and others have commented on whether such a big shock should have been given in one shot, by considering the fact that the accounting engineering by the banks had been going on for a significantly long time. Was it necessary to ask them to bear it up all? But I think that bullet has been bitten. I think that difficult decision
I
has
like
been
the
taken.
choice of your words, accounting engineering, which is why I'm going to move on to Mr. Jalan. 25,000 crore rupees, according to Mr. Singh, is enough because the government has said that they will come in with more when and if required. And of course, the Reserve Bank of India has also now decided to change accounting standards. That's another debate, and I'm going to turn to my left for that. But do you believe the banks, I mean, considering NPA was making such a huge headline, we have now done a safe landing?
No, we have not yet safe landed, no way, but we have gone a long way. And the best part is that there was a feeling being spread that there is a disconnect between the RBI and the Finance Ministry. Now, this is a clear instance that they are both working to a purpose. So RBI played its role, the Finance Ministry has more than responded, now RBI has already started responding. So this working in tandem, the symmetrical growth path will see the monetary easing and a lot of easing also with the banks, and then consequently the problems of finance being available for the industry.
It's not just worth its while to talk about recapitalization. The other bit that the government wants to do is sell stake in public sector banks, and something that hasn't happened, Mr. Gangopadhyay, in the last 1 year when markets were high. And of course, now markets have given a big thumbs up and they've risen, what, 1,300 points in the last 3 trading sessions alone. But do you believe somewhere along the line, PSU recapitalization is an easy go-to, and stake sale is perhaps not, which economists like you and corporates like Mr. Munjal would argue is perhaps the better option?
Well, as I said, allowing public sector enterprises to get rid of their assets is a good first step. So I don't think we should try and push that more. Hopefully the public sector enterprises will be able to do it. It's an extremely difficult exercise, right? Many other countries have tried it, and they have done it in a very transparent way. Given our ways of functioning, I'm just worried that nothing will happen, because it will not be done transparently, and so everybody would be afraid of being pulled up for corruption or selling the asset to their nephews. So nothing might happen, unfortunately. So I don't want to push it. I hope that they sit down and do it properly. As far as bank recapitalization is concerned, I must make one point. I think it's as bad. It's good if it is one-off. Otherwise, it's as bad as loan waiver schemes. It's huge. It has huge moral hazard. And I do not understand why banks, after so many years, still require this sort of support.
It's almost putting bad money behind good money. I mean, good money behind bad money. Mr. Munjal, I have an outlier of a question on the banks, and I'm going to put you on a bit of a spot here, so a warning coming your way. When the CSO changed the growth standards and the measures of growth, there were many eyebrows raised. Now, yesterday, RBI has changed accounting norms for banks. They can budget their properties and incomes coming from that in Tier 1 capital. No eyebrows being raised, everybody giving it a big thumbs up. There's a bit of a double speak there, isn't it?
Yes and no. Yes, in the sense it is a change which came suddenly. But no, because it is clearly a move down the same road that RBI has been talking about consistently now for a while. They said, you do this much and we will do this much, which is what they've done, to the point Sudhir just made. In the US, they tried this good bank, bad bank. And for a while now, people in India have been talking about this. Can we take out all the NPAs and all the bad assets as they get certified in the US system, and put them in a separate institution, allow these banks to function, to go on and support the growth which the economy and the industry needs right now, and handle that as a separate issue, which, by the way, that does not become a problem, it becomes a business opportunity.
That's right.
There was a lot of discussion and debate, is this something India can do? I think the second option we've chosen is as good, which is encourage a series of ARCs, asset reconstruction companies. The question, however, there is, if government is going to do them, do they have the capital to fund those? So I think what we need to do is encourage a series of private sector asset reconstruction companies, allow assets to move out of these banks into those ARCs, turn those into productive assets, because the assets, many of them are very, very good quality assets.
That's right.
And they just bogged down because of the current financial situation in the banks, in the companies, and in the economy. So each of them got a double whammy with time. The delays did not just hurt the projects, it hurt their financing.
True.
And it's like a logjam, and this is what Mr. N.K. Singh was referring to. The Roads and Highways Ministry has actually gone on and released a large number of these projects. Some of them have started functioning. So I think we need to do both things. Encourage the companies to turn around where they're feasible, and where it's not, take them out of the system and allow them to be handled separately.
So let me just begin the last round before I throw the floor open for questions. And Mr. Munjal, I will begin this with you, because many people thought one of the key things that the budget needed to do was boost demand. The panel is more or less in consensus that an effort has been made. I want to talk to you about the other bit, taxation. And if you actually look at what has happened, whether it's an infra cess or whether it's an agricultural cess, this is going to add on to the cost of services and the cost of products. Is it ironical that at a time when you want to boost demand, you're making things a little more expensive?
So if you see, there is an active debate going on in the world right now over the last 5 years about disparity in incomes that has taken place in the entire world over the last 30 years. And N.K. Singh would confirm this at the World Economic Forum in Davos. This has been a serious issue being debated for the last 3 years now. So in some sense, I think there's an effort to correct this. At the bottom end, support more. At the top end, take some back. And at the same time, put that back into productive assets wherever you can. As a balance, and personally, it will hurt many of us. You'll end up paying more for cars and for a whole lot of things which are already high priced. You will end up paying higher taxes through these duties and cesses. Sure. Duties and cess, I think, is never an elegant way of doing this. If we can find a way to club these together and then at the back end create a more efficient allocation system. The problem with that is anytime money goes into the general account, it sometimes becomes a black hole. You cannot take it out for specific purposes. We saw the best example of this when the cess on fuel was charged and used to build the highways in India. I don't know when it was, but 12 or 14 years ago, 10 years ago. And it worked brilliantly. So, which is why industry no longer cribs every time you want a cess for a specific purpose. Because it's actually turned out to be a more efficient way of allocating resources. It's not more elegant, by the way, but it's more efficient.
More efficient, not more elegant. What about you, Mr. Singh? Do you believe in some sense these cess, and Mr. Munjal has put it in perspective here, but do you believe, and I do understand the reason why they wanted to do it, because they want some kind of a congruence coming between the various taxation before GST does kick in, the elusive GST that we keep referring to. But service tax wasn't hiked, but cess and, you know, the krishi and the infra cess did come in. So it does make things more expensive.
Well, I think that, you know, I myself wrote a piece some time ago, which I called "The Cesspool of Cess," was the heading of a piece I had written some time ago. And Mr. Jaitley seems to be acutely aware of this, because if you look at the budget, he has discontinued 30 cesses. So 30 cesses have been taken off the number of cesses which existed. And instead, some cesses have come which are directly beneficial to the sector which has been targeted, namely infrastructure, the rural sector, and the campaign for a Swachh Bharat. Now, these are very specifically directed campaigns. Sunil is absolutely right. It was at that time I was Secretary to Prime Minister, Mr. Vajpayee, when he had announced the big highway program. And the issue was that, considering the fact that budgetary subventions are an annual subvention, and considering that you needed vastly greater sums of money for the road construction program, the cess on petrol and diesel was the only way forward. The securitization of the future revenue stream enabled much larger borrowing from multilateral institutions, and that is how the great national highways were built. These cesses which have been imposed by the finance minister are specific cesses designed for specific purposes on infrastructure or the rural economy. So I do not think it clutters up the taxation regime. There's an enormous effort to clean up. I think that if the GST is done, and on the corporate tax, the roadmap is very clear. There is only one bit of complication which I find in part 2 of the speech, that a number of duty rates have been tinkered with. Those are transitional to protect some sectors which are facing this great onslaught of a meltdown in some parts of the world.
So I actually did echo the first question that came in from the audience here. Mr. Sanjay Behel was making a point to Mr. Singh, with additional cess and increasing taxes and no relief in income tax slabs, the life of a common man may not improve and people will be made to pay more taxes than earlier. You've perhaps got your answers with both these gentlemen right here on the dais. My second question for this morning is for Mr. Sunil Kant Munjal. It comes from Venus Vani of NMA. And it says, what about GST and its implementation? What is the scenario for the bank transaction tax?
So GST is something we've all been waiting for many years now. In fact, when the first time the VAT announcement got made, the recommendation was VAT graduating to GST. Now it's, as we've all been acutely made aware of the politics of the land, that it can hold up something which are considered to be good for the nation. So I hope and wish that we will see implementation of GST, because it has multiple benefits. First, turning India into a common market, which we've all been waiting for a long time. Second, it will bring in efficiency into the entire system. At this moment, people create warehouses and godowns, for example, based on the tax policy of each state. If that goes away, then you will create a warehouse where it's most efficient, thereby bringing down logistics. Indian logistics cost is very, very high. It's 14%. It's about the highest in the world right now. And that's another benefit we will get. So there is a multitude of benefits which comes through this. Sorry, what was the second part?
The second part was about the bank transaction tax.
So bank transaction tax, again, is not a new point of discussion. It went as far as one point as there was a recommendation from a group of chartered accountants at Pune, which said we can remove all taxes if we just put a bank transaction tax. And it was found, however, that a lot of the transactions are not actually being done through banks. So until we can align our system to be formally and efficiently run through a banking system, this would actually miss the point.
That's a fair point indeed. There's another question coming, and Mr. Gangopadhyay, I'm going to urge you to take these questions. Next up, I'm going to take questions from the audience. Can the fiscal discipline hold next year, given the obligations of the 7th Pay Commission?
Sorry?
The question says, if you can identify yourself in the audience who sent this, but the question says, can the fiscal discipline hold next year, given the obligations of the 7th Pay Commission? I think that has been budgeted for. They're not going to go in with the full recommendations, so I think it will be. I think the larger question...
The question is because they said they are covered only part of the requirement,
yes, exactly.
not the entire amount.
Precisely. If I may ask you the larger question, 3.5% for next year is all okay, 3% for the year after that is all right, but what should the FRBM Act be doing? What is the range that an economist like you will have in mind?
Well, this is
and how difficult will cyclical adjusting going to be?
This is a very wrong question to ask me, because I have never, ever supported this fiscal deficit target at all, right? So in that sense, I will...
So you'll be happier with a range then?
Yeah, what I think we should be doing a lot more is rationalizing expenditure. What this allows us to do, and this is very, very common among us, that we look at an outcome and we think that if we fix the outcome, the problem is solved. Right? It's like giving crocin when you have high fever for an ailment which you are not addressing. So this fixing the fiscal deficit just because some other countries have said so, or we are worried about foreign investment, I think is a completely wrong idea. We are so quick to give examples, but the good examples are the examples that are needed to be given, we don't give. We talk about PPP in India for infrastructure. I think we lost huge ground by trying to implement infrastructure through PPP. The country we refer to all the time, namely China, 80% of its infrastructure was built with government money. That we, forget and talk about the great infrastructure in China. So we must understand why we want the expenditure. We must make sure that that expenditure is productive and then go ahead and do it, whatever it takes.
Fair point, but the flip side to that argument is there are inflationary concerns, and India has seen that between 2008 to now. There are questions that are coming my way. Some of them have been answered because Mr. Vikash Srivastav of Katak Management Association wanted to ask on bank recapitalization. I think that question has been addressed. The larger question though is, and this, I'm going to club two questions together. Can India grow in isolation when the global economy is struggling to grow? And does the budget secure the economy against external shocks? You want to take that? Does the budget secure the economy against external shocks? Essentially about, can India be the ray of hope in a world that's very, very nasty?
Almost a given, I think. It's on the card that we'll be the fastest rising growth country. And with this thrust, this will come naturally. But I wanted to raise one point.
Sure.
What is it that I felt has been missed out in the budget? You have not raised, anyone has not raised.
I'm going to come to the missing out part in my next round, but I will first open the floor for questions. Please identify yourselves, and I urge you to stick to questions directed to people. Do not make statements of intent here. Yes, sir.
Good morning, I'm Munjal, I'm member of AIMA. My question is to Mr. Singh. What kind of reform India needed most to create demand, to boost growth,